What am I to do?
Welcome to He Said, She Said Razor Branding Podcast with Michael Russo and Jaci Russo. To learn more about how to improve your brand, visit brandRUSSO.com.
Michael, our guest today is Libby Cain with Extraco Banks, and their approach to data, it wasn't fast, it wasn't easy, it wasn't without some challenges, but man, is it paying off for them in the long run.
Yeah, and it's something that we hear from our clients all the time. And the experience is how to get their head around it, how to use it, how to, manage it. It's because it's a lot, and it's such a useful tool. It's a useful tool, can also end up paralysis by analysis. You can go through a lot of things if you don't know how to manage it properly, if you don't know how to use it for what you're trying to do, for finding the answers. And I was telling her, the answers are out there. If you know your audience, they'll tell you what they need. They'll tell you how to go and how to best reach them. I mean, the creative side is a little more challenging sometimes, but having the answers for what you need to do as a marketer, they're there. You just have to have the right questions.
Well, and what I love it is the way that they're using it. They know what's working and not working. And so when she starts sharing with us the results of using data to formulate marketing decisions, that data to decision path is so smart. It was a whole conversation was fascinating. And I love that they've leaned into it. I don't think it's taken over. It hasn't dominated what they're doing it. They're just using it to make really smart decisions. And I think that's good.
Yeah. I don't want to keep you too long. I know you got to get back to the crosswalk.
Now, listen, to be clear, this is red. So if y'all see it as red on your screen, please drop Michael a little note and fuss at him. He's been giving me a hard time all day, telling me that it's orange. And it is not. It is Raging Cajun red. It's vermilion is our red. And if you're in person, it really does look red. I'm not going to say it doesn't maybe look more orange on screen, but it is for the Raging Cajuns. The Louisiana Raging Cajuns baseball team is currently in quite the win streak, and I'm enjoying our success.
That's great. I'm just saying, it looks like, if you see Jackie in the morning standing with a sign, walking kids across the street, or as a hall monitor here at the agency, then she's obviously gotten bored with her life and has decided to find something new and exciting.
Don't tempt me. I could go be a Walmart greeter as good as the next guy. So do not tempt me.
You got the vest.
I think their vests are blue.
They are, yeah.
Do you think they would let me wear the Raging Cajun red vest if I took the job at Walmart?
And it's more like a constructor, like a construction worker maybe, or I don't know. It could mean a number of things. I don't know. I'm think about it.
How about if I do this? Now I look like a really cool rapper.
Or other things. I'm not sure. We're just
not a rapper.
Move on.
Okay.
No.
I think it could be a rapper.
All right.
Well,
anyway,
for those of you that have stuck around through this painful introduction, I hope you enjoy the episode.
When the day is through.
Hey, Libby, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, good morning. Good to see you.
It's good to see you too. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for taking the time with us.
Thanks for inviting me to join you today. I'm excited about what we're going to talk about.
Oh, me too. One of the things that I was so fascinated by in our conversations we had previously was around business intelligence, data. I feel like sometimes there are these little pockets of super valuable information that live in other departments. Finance has some information, sales has some information, marketing has some information. Sometimes the C-suite has some information. So if you don't mind, I know it's kind of like a starting in the middle, but this is one of the things that's most fascinating to me. Talk me through how you gather all that intel from different people and then how you use it.
Yeah, so great question. When we started on this project, we identified all of our different data sources. We have 44 disparate data sources across our organization and all of the operations, HR, like you said, finance, all of that. And so what we really wanted to do, obviously, we were focused on creating a single customer profile. And because all of our customer data was siloed, across all of our lines of business, that's really the data sets that we focused on first. So, online banking, all of our marketing data, so Google Analytics website data, all of our HubSpot data that was coming in, our traditional, banking, so retail accounts and loan accounts, mortgage, insurance, investments, trust. I'm trying to remember. There's one other data set. But anyway, those were the ones that we focused on first with bringing in and mapping those together to create like a single, unified customer profile so that we could then use that for segmentation. It probably took us, I would say, 6 months to get all of those data sets mapped and functional
That's a
inside of our
lot of
customer.
data. I'm shocked it only took 6 months.
It's
I would have
like
thought 6
billions
years.
of rows of data. I think it's 8 billion rows of data or something crazy like that. I know when they said billion, I was like, wait, hold on just a minute. But,
Like with a
some of that's
B.
historical. Yeah. So like, it's not all just like current. We did bring in some historical data, everything that fell within our retention lines. So that if we wanted to do anything like from a predictive analytics perspective or anything like that, we would have, a good data set to start with. So, we have nightly like batch files that come through the update, like our current data, and then we have all this historical data. Obviously, that isn't everything that we mapped over into our master segment for segmentation. So we have kind of two sides of our customer data platform. We have what's called the data workbench, and that's where all the data resides, and we can query that. So if we want, super detailed information, we can do that on that side. And then we also define the behaviors and attributes that we thought we want to use from a segmentation perspective. And then that's what we mapped into the Audience Studio side. So that's what our marketers use. So Audience Studio, you don't have to know SQL, which is great. All you really need to understand is, you do need to have a general idea of how your data is structured because you have filters and whatnot. But you don't have to know SQL. Data Workbench is SQL oriented. So you do have to have some coding expertise, understand how to do joins, that kind of thing. But it works well for us. We have, we use both sides. We operationalize the data in other ways just besides marketing. We've automated some reporting that people were doing manually where they were pulling data from different, databases and, manually combining that to do reports. So we were able to bring that into the system and automate it. Right now, we just lost some data. And so we're able to recover it using the CDP, which is great because it was going to cost around $7,000 from our vendor for them to go back and do a, do a refresh for us. So it's another just kind of side benefit from what we're doing.
So obviously I don't want to get into any sort of, proprietary processes, but how are you using it? What are the real world applications of this data?
We use it for all of our segmentation. And so there's not a campaign that we start that isn't used inside the CDP from a segmentation standpoint. We're using it for lookalike modeling. So within Google and Meta, we can create, usually we try to have a standard set of about 2,000 if we have if the segment that big to share to set the model. We're using it with some geofencing and geofencing as well. And then reporting, there's kind of like the side benefit of things. Reporting, it's a transformed and standardized data set. So we have done an agentic AI proof of concept with the data that's in there. We've also used it, like I said, just for some general like historical data, some backup. We've used it for connections with when we've needed to share data with other third parties. Like for instance, our loan origination system, we needed to share customer data with them. So instead of having to go to the source, which can be tricky because they don't always want to play nice with other people, we already have the data in our system. So we're able to just, set up the connections there. And so we can ingest and export as needed. And then last, that is our source of truth for our CRM. So we ingest, we have a nightly batch file with the CRM as well after all of our files update on the CDP for there. So
you're living the dream.
Well, it wasn't always a dream to get here, but yeah, it's been really good for us. So.
But I mean, to have that much insight. So have you started to see the benefit? Is there been a return on the investment of all this time and energy?
Absolutely. So last year, our conversions were up 27% year over year.
Wow.
It was amazing. And the cool thing about it was we had less conversions, but we generated more dollars. So for banks, we generated new money. We generated more new loans than we did in the past with kind of our more traditional segmentation. So really what that said to me was, when we get a really good segment, when you understand the behaviors and attributes that are within the segment, you can have a segment of 50 people and you're going to convert, I don't know, 30, 40% of them. And it may be a really great segment for you. So it doesn't always have to be these big, giant segments that you have to do. In fact, I found the more targeted we've gotten, the better the conversion rate that we have. It's also reduced our cost per acquisition, which is great. Probably last year we were like 36% less in cost per acquisition than we were in previous years. We did some different channels last year, so that may go back up, even just from like our, we don't have our first quarter results, but our first 2 quarters, our first 2 months rather, we're still significantly below what we've been in the past. So those are 2 really big areas for us.
I'm curious where you've been. Obviously, I was reading your bio on LinkedIn. You've been with the bank for a good amount of years. So you've seen the growth of the department, of the bank itself, and all the good things. Where did all this start, and how did it evolve to where you are today? I'm curious about that. Like, at what point did, obviously technology has been rapidly changing over the past many years, the use of data, how we're using that within our systems. But at what point did you say, or did you see like, okay, we're going to do this, or we're going to take advantage of this? And where did this all begin to where we led to today?
Yeah. So it really started in 2018. I sit on our innovation task force, which is chaired by our chief of consumer banking and innovation. And she and I were talking about it, and we're like, we really need to figure out a way to use our data, because banks sit on so much data. I mean, we have all this transaction data. I mean, it's just all of your online banking data, loan, everything. So we started to do some research. Really, we spent probably about a year and a half studying the environment, meeting with different vendors, trying to determine like what do we want to do, what does the process look like for us. And we contracted with the consultant to help us do some of that. And we had just had our big presentation in 2020, the week that everything shut down. So all of that was put on pause as we kind of got through the pandemic. And then we picked it back up in late 22. And at that point, I convened what we call a business intelligence task force. And so it was made up of all of our line of business leaders, and also operations, IT, and accounting, just from a budgeting perspective. And so I brought them all along with me on the journey as we continued to vet out new vendors and determined like what our strategy was going to be. And so, we created a 3-year strategy. We had a lot of use cases. One of them was being just that, unifying our customer data to create, a single golden record that we could use for segmentation purposes. Predictive analytics, being able to do like next best action or next best product, churn, predicting churn by line of business. We've talked a little bit about fraud. I think fraud is probably, for banks anyway, that's usually one of the first use cases everybody goes to, because it's so prevalent and there's such a big opportunity from a cost savings perspective. Anyway, we have a myriad of use cases there.
Well, I think it's hard too. Over the years, we've worked with many large regional and community banks, and they're usually understaffed in their marketing departments, and they're trying to keep up with day-to-day activities, and everybody wants something, and managing this and managing that. It is so hard to do what you did, because you have to take a step back and say, let's look at this and let's retool it, or let's rethink how we're doing it. And it's an impossible task for, I think, a lot of organizations. I mean, you guys aren't a giant bank. I mean, you have a nice size in the Waco area, but yeah, it's a challenge.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, because some of that goes into like the data quality challenges that we're experiencing today. Because the way that we originally set up like our CIF system wasn't focused around using our data downstream from like a segmentation perspective or from an analytics perspective. So what we're starting to come across is we have these use cases or even segments that we want to build out, and we can't find the data because we're putting it in a different field than maybe it needed to be initially, or it could be that our vendor didn't have a field for us to capture that data when we set up the process. And so we created a workaround and now they do have a field. So, when you talk about a challenge, I think that's probably one of our biggest challenges right now is working with the different departments, helping them understand their data because a lot of people don't. I mean, they just know what they kind of use the system for, but they're not thinking about how they can use the data inside the system. So that's a big focus for us. I heard a quote the other day that it's not it's not developing the code, it's how you train the leader to use the data. And that really resonated with me because I feel like that's kind of my era. That's where I'm at right now is, we're trying to train people around what data is available, how they can use it other than just reports, because I feel like everyone, gets very report heavy. And I don't know if that's just a bank thing or if that's a everybody thing.
Everybody.
Thank you. Thank you for making me feel a little better because I'm like,
Everybody.
wow, reports. But then also how they can access other data sets that we have in there and combine it with their customer data to find insights that maybe they're not thinking about from a traditional segmentation perspective. But also, if we're missing data, if there's data points that they want to access, and if we're missing it, then we need to go back and look at like how things are structured. Do we need to change how you're capturing customer data and or where you're capturing it? So, I think some of that may just be ongoing always. I mean, we haven't done like a big MDM initiative yet. I think that's on the horizon. We talked about that a lot when we started this back up in 22. Um, I think we did not do an enterprise data warehouse first. We did a customer data platform. I feel like, especially with AI coming on deck, we probably I have about 5 good use cases now for an EDW. Because we do need clean, transformed data sets from an analytics perspective, and then obviously also from an AI perspective.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
think
I'm
a lot
kind
of
of jumping all
people.
over the place.
No, it's
You're good.
fine. The thing is, a lot of people, especially in marketing, they're always looking for the answers, and a lot of times the answers are already out there. It's like coming up with things. Your audience is going to tell you what they need, and they're going to tell you what they want to hear and how you can best serve them. But you have to listen first, and you have to ask the right questions, and you have to be able to look at the data. You have to be able to look at what's been going on in the marketplace. And like I said, a lot of times it gets complicated, but it doesn't have to be. It's like you said, who's driving that? Who is the person that's going to decipher the code? And it's generally easier than people think, I think. But you have to have the things in place to help you get there.
Exactly. I think some of that, man, you were talking and I had an idea that popped up into my head and I was like, yeah, that's
Just
totally what
interrupt him. He's used to it. Just cut him off and say what you want to say.
Well, I try to be a good listener. I think some of that is just, yeah, it's very simple insights. We've seen that where people have asked questions who are like, hey, like, let's just create a segment with that one thing and let's see how it works. So I think that's another big benefit for us is we do weekly sprints, weekly business intelligence sprints where we brainstorm different segments and we'll pop them out there. We'll run like a 2-week mini campaign and look at the conversion results and decide if we want to put more money behind it. If we, depending on the response that we had, we just launched like a high yield savings account CD campaign. And I think we're doing 8 different segments for it, which feels big for me because in the past we probably would have done 2, but we're trying all these different, excuse me, pockets with with our mortgage customers and also with our loan customers. And we're looking at transaction data as part of the segmentations. And then obviously just your traditional, maybe kind of higher balance clients. And then also like, what does that look like in the external environment? And then what downstream, what other products and services can we offer them? So we're creating a journey for each one of those segments as well, depending on how they interact with the campaign. And I don't want to say it's easy, but it's quick. You know what I mean? Like we're able to now that we've got it, we understand the data model, we can like riff on all these different segments. We can get them set up in a day or two, get the journey set up, and then like, let's just, go to market and see what happens. So
Well, when you have data to work off of, decisions are easier because you're making them based on actual evidence of what works and doesn't work, as opposed
That's
to guessing. But
right.
now here's the big question for me, because you're making my little data-driven heart so happy right now. Oh my gosh. I mean, it would be like a kid in a candy store. Michael, however, is in a full sweat. His stomach feels kind of twisted up in knots, and he is ready to just push the exit out of this interview because it's too much data for him. So I'm going to ask the question that's in his heart that he hasn't verbalized yet. How do you keep that pendulum focused in the middle between using all of the data for logical steps and still finding a way to build a brand with emotional messaging? Where's that balance for you?
So that's a great question. And for us, the way that we do it is we have set up personalized email templates
Mm-hmm.
inside of our ESP. So when we pull the data, we can pull the relationship manager for the account or for the CIF, and then we can have it where it pulls that template. So it looks like it's coming from Davy, or it looks like it's coming from Libby, and it's not
Sure.
coming from Extraco Bank's corporate.
Right.
So that's probably the biggest way that we try to keep the human element in it.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like when I talked about those conversions earlier, that when we had that 27% growth last year, not all of that converted in the digital environment. So some of that is we're driving business back into the branches, or we're driving business to our producers. Um, a big initiative for us this year is we're doing lead scoring,
Good.
and we're moving that into the CRM. So we're kind of focused on, like, here are these campaigns that we want to execute from, maybe like, or at least start it digitally and try to work them into the funnel, and then get the intent to purchase, and then
Mm-hmm.
push that into the CRM for our producers to close. So that's kind of a big deal for us, because in the past, when we have generated leads, they weren't always seen as legitimate leads, or they weren't, I don't want to say legitimate, let me say qualified leads.
Sure, but I know what you
And to
mean.
be fair, I would say probably not,
Right.
So now we're much better able to qualify it, create that lead score. So we're working um, really a partnership now with our producers, versus we're over here doing our campaigns and we're producing our stuff, and you're over here and you're doing your calls, and you're producing, your pipeline. Now we're kind of working together and co-creating this pipeline, and I'm excited about that. And I
That's
think that
awesome.
just helps them see the value of the data as well.
Right. No, that's awesome. One of the things that I find, especially in a large organization like yours, is you spend all this time, energy, and effort getting the data right. And then the next day, it's already outdated. Somebody has changed a job, changed a phone number, changed an email address, changed something. And then secondarily, because this is a two-parter, there will be people maybe in the producers, in the loans department, in maybe in some of your more personal one-on-one relationship areas, who don't want to share their data and don't want to use the system and don't want to update the system. So how have you balanced that, keeping the data current and all these chefs in the kitchen? How do you make sure they're all following the process to keep the CRM pure?
So that's a great question. Some of it is on the marketing side. We're very focused. We have like a quarterly email campaign that goes out for anyone who hasn't updated their data in the last 90 days. We'll send it out and just kind of like, hey, don't forget, like, is this still accurate? Go into online banking, update it for us. And we add different data points depending on where we might see some gaps. So right now, we really need to update our employer and occupation data, because we're doing a lot around occupations from like a product development perspective. So we want a cleaner data set for that. So we're including that. And then there's a lot of change management that goes with this. Like, it's honestly, it's nonstop. So some of it is helping people not feel threatened by the work that we're doing, but helping them understand how we can come alongside and partner with them. And why would you not want to do a warm call versus a cold call? And especially with someone who has interacted with 3 or 4 different pieces of marketing, so they've obviously shown intent to purchase. So now when you're calling them, it's not, hey, like, I'm so and so, just wanted to tell you about it. It's like, hey, we've seen that you're interested in a car loan. I just want to confirm, your you're interested, or like, let's get you pre-qualified while you're looking. What are you looking for? Blah, 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 blah. It's a totally different conversation for them. So some of it is just we have to prove it up with them. You're always going to have your sprinters, and then you're going to have your walkers,
Right.
and it's easy to focus on your sprinters because they're like, they wanted the technology yesterday, and, they are, ready to go. But I found that sometimes we have a better transition when I focus on my walkers, or at
Mhm.
least get one or two walkers in different areas and get them to buy into the system, because then they become a really great kind of, you know, champion for the work that you're doing with everybody else on their team. And
Right.
if the walker can do it, then I can do it. When the sprinter's doing it, I'm like, whatever, that's how they are, so
Right. Well, and it's funny. I like the use of sprinter and walker because you're taking demographics out of it. Because I was gonna ask about which of your generational segments have been the
no,
greatest about embracing or being resistant to the change, but it's not age or gender reliant. It really is about their disposition. It's walkers or runners. So I love that. I'll be using that from now on and not quoting you. I'm just letting you know.
not a problem.
I'm totally stealing it.
That,
Um, So when I think about the vast undertaking and the time that it took, the expense, all of it, talk to me a little bit about how you were able, you personally, because there are marketers listening to this right now thinking, I mean, that's nice, but there's no way my company would go for the expense of it, the
mhm.
resources it's going to dedicate, buy in at the C suite, whatever it is. And then they may personally have some concerns about leading that charge. So, talk a little bit to how you reskilled
Sure.
yourself at this point in your career to be able to take on this endeavor, because I'm assuming we're similar in age, roughly. I may be a couple years older than you, but they weren't teaching us this stuff back in school in the
No.
1900s. This isn't 1900s thinking. So,
Oh
how
my
did
God.
you evolve and grow with it?
Sorry. So, yeah, I used to joke that business intelligence was like my side gig. So I had marketing over here, and I was doing all of this, and then I'd also been tapped to lead this effort within the company. And a lot of it is just personal growth. So you're taking the time, you're listening to podcasts, you're reading books, you're looking, whatever you can find online to kind of skill up. Some of that is like looking for more traditional like training. I've actually used Chat GPT. Like right now, I'm learning about database structure a little bit more. I was like, I need to know more about this. So I've got a little Chat GPT tutorial that I've been working on every day. I think for us, what we usually do when we're bringing on new technology is we will hire an expert, and then we will contract with that expert for 3 to 5 years. So here's our skill level and here's their skill level. And as you go through the project, you learn from them and you close that knowledge gap. And at some point, usually around the 5 year mark, you're going to know enough that you can assume full ownership of a platform. Um, and then you can decide for us right now, what one of the things we're talking about is, do we want to add additional FTEs to support it, or do we want to continue to outsource? So I could see a use case for a data engineer, which we have
Mhm.
outsourced historically.
Right.
Because now we're adding on additional platforms that want managed services contracts also. So now it makes sense. Maybe this person would support three instead of just one. I think also what's critical is not only me reskilling myself, but reskilling my end users also. So if you recall, I talked about that business intelligence task force. Well,
Mhm.
what was so important with that is people commit to what they help create. And so the fact that we were all kind of starting at the same level, and I was bringing them along the journey, and they were helping me vet out the vendors, and they were having the conversations, and they were on the reference calls, and blah, 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 blah. I wouldn't say they're experts, but for sure it kind of brought them along. So I didn't get into that same knowledge gap where I'm up here and all my end users are down here. And now I've got to try to, you know, close the gap as well. I think it's a little bit of everything. I mean, I'm still learning. I'm by no means an expert. Actually, my job is to be a generalist. Um, but uh, I think, I love to learn. I'm curious. It's a good fit for me. I like to build new things. And I just see such an intersection between what we're doing from a data perspective and what we're doing from a marketing perspective and just from a company perspective that to me it made sense. And yeah, I was like, hey, maybe I want to be a chief data officer someday. Maybe I don't want to be chief marketing officer, like let's think about where that's going. And
But don't we think those two can merge into one
I
sometimes?
think they could. I haven't seen the job design yet.
Well, I think that comes with the big
But
raise. So if that comes
I
up, you
think
tell somebody to call me. I got your back.
right.
But I like the way you
I think
approach that.
I
And so
think
for the people
I
who are
think
listening who
I
couldn't
think
see her
I
hand
think
gestures,
I
I
think
think it's really important to understand. She was talking
I
about
think
way
I
low
think
down
I think
here, like
I
in
think
her lap
I
at the
think I
desk,
think
is where
I
she
think
started off with her
I
skill
think
level
I think
and
I
took
think
the
I
initiative
think
to read
I
books
think
and listen to podcasts
I think
and use
I think
tools to
I think
learn
I think
because the
I
vendor
think
she was
I think I
interviewing
think
hasn't
I
even
think
hired
I
yet,
think
has to have enough
I think
knowledge
I
to
think
be able
I
to
think
interview
I think
them and be
I
able to
think
make apples to apples
I think
comparisons.
I
But then
think
there's still a
I
big
think
gap.
I
So
think
vendors
I
way
think
up here at the
I
top of
think
our
I
heads.
think
And
I think
now
I think
our
I
heroine,
think I think
Libby, is probably at about to
I
the mid
think I
chest.
think
And then
I
as she's
think
continued to learn over these past 5 years,
I think
she has risen up with her knowledge
I think
level to
I
catch
think
up to them. And I just think
I
that's
think
important to note
I
because a
think
lot
I
of people
think
get
I think I
frustrated.
think
They
I
don't
think
do it
I
because they
think
don't know
I
it
think
and they don't want people to
I
know they
think
don't know. So they stay
I
away from
think
it. So
I
kudos to
think
you.
I think I Oh, think well, thank you. That doesn't by no means mean that we haven't made some mistakes.
Sure.
And some of those mistakes, obviously, because we didn't have the knowledge. For instance, we had to redo our data model because we originally, when we set it up, we had the wrong focus. And so every time we were going to do segmentation, we would have some kind of issue or be missing data or it would break or blah, 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 blah. So we had to take a step back and say, what is happening? What is happening? What did we do wrong? Why is this not working for us? And so, yeah, I mean, that was hard to do, hard for me to go tell my boss, like, hey, guess what? Remember those 6 months of time spent where we put all this together? Yeah, not working so good. We're going to need to spend another, 3 months, revamping what we did. I think that's I think as long as your executive leadership, depending on who's tapped for this, if you're in marketing and you get tapped for this, and this is like you're in
I
the same
think
situation as me, this was your side gig until it becomes more of your full-time gig. Your executive leadership has to know that, and they have to give you a little bit of grace that, like, I don't know everything. I'm going to
right,
learn and I'm going to grow as I move through this project, but I'm going to make mistakes.
right.
And thankfully, it's on, was it, we always talk about fail fast, fail
Yes.
often and fail fast. Yeah. So as long as you can fail fast and figure it out, don't wait too long and,
Right.
pivot and change course. So
How does
I think,
I know that we
I
talked a lot
think, I
about
think,
data and
I think,
process and
I
technique and
think,
things like
I
that.
think, I think,
How do
I
you
think, I think,
manage
I think, I
the
think, I
more
think, I think,
connection
I
side of
think,
that, the
I
creative
think,
side
I
where you're
think, I think,
messaging and,
I
and
think,
staying on
I
message
think, I
and
think,
what the bank
I think,
is and how do
I
you
think,
represent that in
I
communication
think,
with your audiences?
I think, I
Where
think,
does that
I
come from
think, I
you?
think,
Is
I
that
think,
something you do
I think,
yearly and you
I
set a
think,
plan and you kind of follow
I
it?
think, I
Is it
think,
is it when
I
is it
think, I
addressed
think,
and looked at again?
I think,
What
I
is your
think,
internal
I
process for
think,
that?
I think, I think about like my voice of Extraco, like in all of our marketing
Yeah.
messaging.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a really great marketing team. I have a content creator slash manager, and then we've got like social media specialists, and then we've got my senior marketing manager, and then we have a MarTech specialist who kind of manages our tech stack and our ESP does a little bit in the CDP from a segmentation perspective and website. And I think you know, we're a small but mighty team, but because we work so closely together and we spend a lot of time with the team up front when we hire new people from an onboarding perspective, like we really focus on who we are as a brand, what is our mission, how do we live out our mission within our community, and what's important from a customer messaging perspective. And then we weave that in throughout like all of our designs. I will say we've been playing around with a lot of the AI content creation tools. There's a good one inside of our ESP. Google has one as well. Just trying to see like, can they replicate that voice of Extraco? Is that another tool that we can use? We've had some pretty good success with it. We haven't had great success. Every time we try video going, it's something crazy. Like someone's got a third eyeball, or I don't even know what, it's like, I'm like, I can't use that. But it was very fun to watch because of all the craziness in it. But I think there's a big opportunity for using AI if you can train the model like um, with your own data. So I personally would love to see at some point Extraco creating their own like content model for us to use with all of our imagery and all of our um, content to help us with that so we can streamline it.
Yeah, I think the problem with a lot of that people are finding now is
To
the overuse of, like, it'll give you more than
to
you need, and then
Yeah.
it's hard to turn the faucet off. And so you end up with a lot of things. And then it really comes down to, I think what's going to come down to more as we move forward with this new technology is having a brain behind it, an editor, somebody that can really understand what you're trying to do, sort through it, compile it, and then put that personal touch back on it. Because at the end of the day, you still need that. You still need that driving force to say, all right, I have a lot of stuff now to consider. That's great. But
Yeah.
where do I go with it? Just like it is with the data, the content creation and the creative development and your voice, your brand promise, all that stuff is still so personal. And again, generation of ideas are great, but where does it all lead? You know?
Okay. I feel like with us, like our brand promise, world class resources with the hometown attitude, that's like been us since '99. I think is when we drafted that, and it's still authentic to who we are as a community bank. We are very focused on our people because our people is the differentiation for us. Banking is very commoditized, and an account is an account is an account. So why would you want to come? Why would you want to change banks or go somewhere? And 9 times out of 10, it's the people, especially for a community bank. With us, we have part of our mission statement is creative and innovative excellence. I think that's what led Extraco to make the investment that we did in all of our kind of data-driven technology that we're working on because we recognize that we don't have to be first to market, although typically we are sometimes. I don't. We are first to market often among our peer group. We are obviously never going to be first to market compared to like the large nationals or the regionals, which is fine with me because honestly, it's great. They can do a little pre-marketing for us before we come in and launch our product. I'm like, yeah, it's just like blah, blah, blah. And people get it. So they kind of help educate the community a little bit. But from a personal perspective, like I mentioned in the ESP, we have profiles set up for all of our line of producers. Sometimes what we'll do is we'll just create an HTML template for them and we'll email it out to the producers and ask them to send it out instead, depending on what they're doing. Usually that's more for like a customer or a prospecting event where they might invite their own person. And then in social media, just trying to make sure that we focus on community posts and sharing posts with our employees because that's who people want to see.
Mm-hmm. I saw on your website too, you have a video chat link, which is something I haven't seen before. Tell me how that works. Do you have somebody literally there that's answering your
Yeah,
calls?
we do in our call center. And we've had that for a long time. It was branded Face Visit. I think we launched that in like, oh man, 2009, 2010, I think. And it's really helpful because as transactions moved into a digital environment for banks, the need to have a giant staff inside your branch lobby, really reduced. And, kind of in the old days, you had tellers and you had relationship bankers, and you might have a consumer lender, and you might have a mortgage person and an insurance person. You had all these people, all these bodies in your branch. Now, what we're able to do with the chat visit and with the video chat is we can just connect them direct with a consumer lender, like at a hub. So we kind of have this hub and spoke environment now. So I don't have to staff everybody in the branch. You can have them at the hub, and then you can connect them. If someone comes in and wants a loan, great, we'll take you over to the video chat. And it's using technology to still deliver a human based experience is what I would say, because I still can see you. I'm still talking to somebody. I'm not interacting, with an application or with a chat bot. So it is a way to kind of still deliver on that hometown attitude part of our brand promise, but also using maybe a world-class resource, such as video technology, which at the time was kind of revolutionary. It's maybe a more common today. So
Yeah. I haven't seen it with any banks. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any, I know there's like Jackie mentioned earlier, compliance and things. I mean, is there anything that you can't do via that, or that you're concerned about security wise, or, or they keep it kind of just, hey, we're here to just put you in the right place.
Yeah, I think there's not an issue from a security standpoint because it's just the same as if you were meeting with a consumer lender in person in the branch. It's
Mm-hmm.
just, I mean, obviously from like a technology perspective, it's within our firewall, right? So it's not
Mm-hmm.
like it's outside where we have to worry about like data in transit. Is it encrypted? Blah blah blah. And there's a printer right there next to it. So if you print, if the lender wants to print something, they just print it to that printer. The customer can pull it off. They can look at the loan documents.
Mm-hmm.
There's a scanner right there, so they can sign it and scan it back in. Or if there's a digital pad there where they can sign as well. So I think
Yeah, I don't know when's the
it
last time I
works.
stepped foot in a bank. I mean, I'm signing
Truly,
things all the
I know.
time that's being dropped in front of me. Hey, sign this, and they're emailing you this, and
Yeah,
yeah, so it's a rare
exactly.
thing.
Yeah. I think, have you seen the video tellers? There are ATM machines that have like connections with people also, which we do have. We call them extra bankers. They're called intelligent teller machines. But depending on what it is, someone in our call center again will pop up on the screen and they'll talk to the customer through the ATM. So
Yeah, I love that.
yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it helps a lot when you're wanting to deploy perhaps not a branch, but you do want to have something like a branch in a certain area. And you can go, much cheaper to market with an ITM because you can still do almost everything. Because most people, what are you coming to a bank branch through? You're probably doing a deposit or a withdrawal, or you have a question about your account. So you can take care of a lot of the transactions with uh, an intelligent teller machine.
Right. That's awesome. I love
Yeah.
that. Libby, this has been more than I hoped. I knew that the data approach that you had taken was unique. And, we hear from banks all the time, our people are the difference because the challenge is products are pretty much the same. Interest rates are pretty much the same. There's all these things that you really don't control. And so I love that you have found a way to use this kind of scientific, data driven approach, but that's not what you lead with. That's just how you lead. And I think that's really brilliant. So good job.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we very much have what we call a relational sales culture.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very much focused on building relationships and not selling, if that makes
Right.
sense. So yeah.
No, it does. And I think it's important
Yeah.
because really it's tough out there. So to find some ways to do a better job of staying on top of it, I think y'all have done that. And I think that's great. Yeah, no, thank you. And to everyone listening, thank you all for sticking around for this episode. We appreciate you. And we'll see you again next time.